Welcome to Canuck of the Dead. When we talk about Canadian horror, I have yet to see a show that rivals this. This is the first name that pops up. And if you know another one, get a hold of us. But Shockstock in London, Ontario is one of the most iconic horror shows in, like I said, not only Ontario, but probably Canada. And the gentleman we have today is one of the headliners there, Jake from Shockstock. Buddy, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How have things been for you?
Things have been all right. Things have been a little challenging, a little different. We've been on a 2-year hiatus now. Just been waiting for things to turn around, things to start opening up. Things are starting to open up, and the promises of things opening up here in Ontario. So we're on track to hopefully, knock on some wood, start getting back into the swing of things and getting back to work.
I'm going to hot seat you right off the pat then, because
Sure.
with the stuff coming out from Ford about, possibly everything being dropped by end of March, are you seriously looking into the starting of Shockstock again?
We got to start looking at dates. We are going to start that conversation. Because again, and I don't mean to sound rude or to sound inappropriate, but I mean, when they made that announcement and they said that the last thing to get mandates removed were sex clubs and bathhouses, and I said, well, Shockstock's kind of like right in the middle of those two things. So
So great.
I'm not saying that Shockstock is a sex club, but I mean it is almost as intimate. When people come to Shockstock, they want to be close. They want to be, on top of each other. Not necessarily in a sexual way, but in a physical way. People are very close. It is going to be the most emotional, physically, connected Shockstock experience we've ever had, and we cannot do that if people aren't allowed to fall into each other's arms in a tearful embrace.
No, I agree with you. And I'm just going to share really quick your website because it says it all right there.
Well, I've actually got to update that and say we're coming back, because right now it's just a big thank you to everyone, and we're getting ready to do it.
But that line in there just fits. It says, for the last 10 years, wonderful fans, vendors, guests, and volunteers have been our extended family, getting together annually to officially kick off the year in ways only truly understood at Shockstock.
Yeah.
And you're right. That is, especially with the new venue you picked up a couple years ago, it became this immersive event.
Yeah, it's a park and fly. It's like you show up and you never leave. You walk into the world of Shockstock and you're there for 3 days, and it doesn't let up. It doesn't let you. I mean, might be able to get some sleep if you're lucky. But you definitely, you're there and you're part of that world. And again, that world can't exist with limitations. We've advertised, even our film festival has been, we've advertised films without limitations. So I mean, the show also has to be without limitations, not because we want to defy any ordinances or we want to be unsafe, but because traditionally it is a organized, beautiful chaos, and we can't strip that away from the show. It wouldn't be the same.
No, you're 100% right. Like even when you were at, I know I went to see it at Centennial Hall the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, when you walked in the doors, you were in a different world.
Yeah.
You were. Where did this brainchild come from? And I only ask because I know you're also one of the key members of London Comic Con. Like, which came first, the chicken or the egg there?
Shockstock came first.
Yeah.
Always. We started Shockstock in 2011, but I mean, the seeds were planted years before, and it was just about going to a bigger Comic Con type convention in Toronto. I won't name names, but the horror section, which grew smaller and smaller and smaller as the years went by. We all kind of stuck together. We all were a family already, kind of in it together, working together. And it wasn't until we ourselves were doing offsite screenings, we brought in a guest of our own, which the conventions kind of stole from us, and they took her, they moved her to the celebrity area, and was super successful, which was great because it sold our screening out. But at the end of the weekend, we said, why are we doing this for someone else? You know, why don't we do something for ourselves, do something for our fans, do something for our vendors? Because our fans would come up to the table or come up to any of the other vendor tables and go, I had to pay this ticket price that was ridiculously high just to come in and see you guys. I wish you guys just had your own, you know what I mean? You could do it in a closet, I'd be there. And it is really for a hardcore horror and cult fan base. But then throughout the 10 years that we've been working on the show and developing the show, we also, it has opened up. And I think people do realize that, it's a very welcoming environment. It's a very accessible environment. And, fans from, all walks of life and all fandoms do end up, eventually congregating to Shockstock and never wanting to leave.
So it looks like horror was the choice before the convention started.
Yeah, we had always we began, or I began with Vagrancy Films. I was helping out James with Vagrancy Films, and we were doing rep cinema, like midnight screenings. We would book old and source old 35 millimeter film prints and do screenings. And then we also had a table at the larger convention, and we would do these offsite screenings. And then we would sell posters and sell movies, and just being a horror vendor, just out of a love of that stuff, and and a way to kind of be part of that culture, be into that place. A love of horror, yeah, brought us in, and then brought our own show, started bringing guests. Shortly after, started bringing films, independent films, horror films. And that kind of opened our eyes to a broader community of horror fans. A lot of them that do make these, micro budget horror films, which again, they've always existed, in video stores. It was a bit of a different market now that there's a digital medium for people to be making films. There's such a large, vast scope of films, and so many of these films are being ignored by other festivals and conventions just because of quantity, not quality, but censorship. They'll say, "Oh, we can't have anything that's pushing the limits, real Vanguard stuff," and we say, "Bring it on! We'll take it all. We'll look at everything. If it's a great film, subject matter is subjective, and people, I think people do seek that stuff out. It exists for a reason. So giving that a platform for people to actually view some of these films and take a look at some of the stuff that's being created around the world is pretty important to us, and it's important to our fan base."
Was film always connected with Shockstock? I don't remember it.
Yeah, first year Shockstock, but what we did is, again, when we started, we were doing offsite midnight shows. We did the first Shockstock, we did an Evil Dead screening on 35 millimeter with the Ladies of the Evil Dead and Hal Delrich there. So film and was very much a part. It wasn't until the second year that I think we started really incorporating screenings on site. And then I think it was either the third or the fourth year that we actually turned it more into like a festival type screening with awards. And actually, no, you know what? The first year we did play some films, because I believe we played Brad Mills' Legend of the Psychotic Forest Ranger. The first year was one of the films we played. And actually, Black Fawn were there, and they actually saw the film and worked out a distribution deal from that. So that was kind of another motivator for us to be like, oh, you know what? There's an opportunity for these filmmakers to connect, the networking. And that's what it's always been. It's always been a community thing for us too. So to have those filmmakers who can attend the show, connecting with, distributors, independent, effects, special effects teams and stuff. It's awesome. It's great.
What's the criteria to either be a guest or a vendor at Shockstock? Because going in there, it is so eclectic. It's just incredible.
Well, it really, I mean, I wouldn't say there's necessarily criteria for being a guest or a vendor. For guests, I mean, we always try to think outside the box with bringing in guests. we've brought some guests that people never thought that they would meet at a convention. Our very first show, we brought Robert Skipper from Hodorowski's El Topo, which is insane cult film, but at the same time, amazing film. Part of the underground. It may not be a horror film per se, but definitely part of like the underground film culture of the grindhouse era, the art house. It's an art film more than than a grindhouse film, but it's still an important film. Diane Thorne we brought first year, Ilsa, Tigress of Siberia, and She Wolf of the SS. And Diane and her husband Howard came multiple times to the show. Wonderful people. Diane unfortunately has passed away, but she was wonderful, and that kind of set the tone where we wanted to bring people that people didn't necessarily expect to see. And a good mix of of horror legends. Kane Hodder we had Robert Zadar, we've had Tony Todd, we've had icons in the horror genre. Sid Haig was at Shockstock one year. But we also try to diversify and bring people that are kind of underground indie. James, my business partner at Shockstock, the godfather of Shockstock, you could say, he's really, really keen, and he's really got a good mind to him to source people who have never done shows before, or you would never expect to see at a show like this. And it's never been a bad move. It's always been great. People love to be surprised. And I would say another criteria somewhat is, and we actually have guests that reach out to us now, is people that hear about the atmosphere of the show and that want to participate in that atmosphere. Point in case, Felissa Rose. Felissa Rose has been at the show, I would say, the most times of any guest that we've had at Shockstock. And she just loves the atmosphere. She loves the fans. She loves coming down. And she goes, guys, am I coming back? Let me come back. And then she will suggest, hey, this person, they're really great. They love this kind of show, and we'll bring them in, and they just jive. We just have guests that jive with the crowd, and that is part of the magic of Shockstock, is that when the convention closes at night and you go down to the restaurant or you go down to the bar, you hang out in the lobby, the guests, the majority of them are all still there hanging out, partying. They're not signing autographs. It's not about that part of the convention anymore. It's just about hanging out, and they really do become friends. You become friends with these people, and you get to socialize, and you know what I mean? Like there's not too many places around in this area that have that opportunity for fans.
You're right, though, that the feeling of family and inclusion there. I know, being a promoter myself, we used to have shows that were like the same weekend, and people would talk to me and they go, why are you upset? Because you don't have the same audience. And it's like, I'm not upset about that. I'm upset I can't go to Shockstock, because you fall into it and you never want to leave.
Yeah, it's tough. Every year we get people that will show up and they go, I bought a day pass, and I'm really, really kicking myself in the pants because I didn't come for the weekend. And everyone said, get the weekend, come for the weekend, get a hotel room. And they go, well, I only live a half hour away, I'll just go home. And they go, I'm totally regretting it. I want to stay next time.
Yeah. Well, like you said, you park and you play, because that's all you have to worry about, is being in the hotel.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
How did that partnership come up? Because that is like a match made in heaven for your environment.
We what happened was, and we always and will always love Centennial Hall, which was the original home of Shockstock. Well, I guess the original landed home of Shockstock, because we originally tried to do it in a Hilton. We actually booked a ballroom in the Hilton, and then when we announced our guest list, they canceled our booking and they told us we could not do the show there.
Really?
Yeah, first year, because when we announced, actually Diane Thorne of all people, because they in Diane Thorne's bio, we mentioned that she played the character, the She Wolf of the SS, Ilsa, and in a bunch of movies, and they said that they did not want to be associated with us because of the character that she played in the film was a Nazi. So because this beautiful, wonderful, she could be your grandma. She was so loving and so warm to everyone. This beautiful woman And they said, nope, we don't want anything to do with that. We don't want anything to do with those type of people. And we're like, she's an actress. Come on. And they
Yeah.
canceled it. So we had to actually, that first year, we actually lost guests because we had to change our dates because we had to scramble for a new venue. Centennial Hall came to our rescue, said, come on in. We'd love to do it. And then we booked at the Station Park, which was also a wonderful hotel, legendary after parties in room 1209 at the Station Park. And, you know, it was great. But what did happen, we'll flash forward to, I think, 5 years, is we had too many challenges with conflicting events. Now, you mentioned when you were saying that things happen on the same weekend, and they actually booked an outdoor hockey tournament in the streets around Shockstock, and they blocked the entrance to the convention center, and it definitely it affected our attendance. People couldn't find parking. People couldn't get into the place. It was a logistics nightmare, and they didn't tell us that they were doing it until like 3 days before. Oh, by the way, the street's going to be blocked with a hockey tournament. But it wasn't just the street, because all the people that were practicing in front of our front doors. We had to keep kicking them out. Like it was a headache. It was a headache. It was hockey players versus horror fiends, and we
I
said enough is enough. Like, we got to look to get away from downtown, because downtown in the late spring and into summer, there's always something going on. And we said, our fans don't need to be dealing with it. We want a place where we can just show up and the whole weekend. So we looked at a few hotels. Ramada, being right by the highway, was like, man, this is great. People can just get off 401, park, and go. And there's you can walk to a liquor store, you can walk to a gas station, you can walk to restaurants, and once you get your supplies, you don't need to leave. Talk to them. The space wasn't as ideal as just as a convention center. It was a little more
They have smaller rooms.
they have smaller rooms. It's more unique. But and I will go on the record, because there's room dividers, and the one the one ballroom, the concave ballroom with that divider, turned into a perfect screening room. That screening room, and we have received so many compliments from filmmakers who have said, you know what, I don't typically like my film screening at conventions, but this screening room is amazing. And we've taken great pride in that screening room being set up the way it is, and it works really well. We've had Joe Bob Briggs hosted a screening there in 2019, and it was the same thing. It was phenomenal. People loved it and packed that screening room. So we make it work. And we've got the two ballrooms. One is kind of a chill ballroom. One is more of a celebrity signing ballroom. And then we've got rooms on the other side as well that we've done some panels and seminars in, as well as after parties. So, and people just party in the hallways and the lobby and throughout the whole hotel, because we take the whole thing over. I guess we didn't mention that. We take over the whole hotel. We book all the rooms. The convention books all the rooms, so we book them ourselves, so that there's no room in the hotel that's not booked by someone there for the same reasons everyone else is. So we never have any problems. And the hotel just loves it. They said, you know what, you take the hotel, you guys want to party in the lobby, you want to be, party in the hallways, everybody's on board. Everybody's happy.
But see, I think that layout that you guys have is ideal, because when you have your big convention, like if you look at London Comic Con, it's a big room and everybody's just shoved into it, so they're looking at the same stuff. You have multiple rooms going on, so you have a lower volume per person per room usually.
Yeah.
Which gives you a bit more freedom to walk around, look around, talk.
Well, it gives you a little more. It's more exploratory as well, where you kind of feel like, oh, I'm going to go spend some time in this room, and then you go in, and then you can come out, you go to the restaurant, have lunch, and then feel like you're going to a whole new area, a whole new event, right? And we've expanded as well. We've moved into the hallways, and on that one side where things have still, and I think we still have some room to grow more within the venue. But I mean, it at times it does seem a little bit crammed, because it is a little bit tighter areas, but it does still feel like you're kind of in a different world in that sense, where you're walking around and kind of getting a feeling that you're not at a convention, you're at Shockstock.
One question I always get asked when I talk about your show, and it's why porn stars? They go, we get the horror genre, but why are there porn stars added and the adult toy vendors?
Well, we don't have adult toy vendors every time. That's only like once in a while we get some. But I mean, again, it's part of the underground culture of, and for the most part, we do bring adult stars who have been involved in horror films. Ginger Lynn was in, worked with Rob Zombie, and um, we have the Burning Angel crew that would come. Jesse Lee, Joanna Angel, Cleo Valentine. They've all done horror films that were adult films or horror parodies. Evil Head or Repenetrator, or anything like that. So I mean, they transcend. But there's also a very punk rock aesthetic to it, where horror filmmakers and a lot of independent horror filmmakers, a lot of punk bands, and a lot of people in the porn industry, they all get treated the same. What I mean? They're underdogs. They get treated like they're they don't get respected by a larger fan community. They're kind of pushed under the rug. So there's a lot of common ground to be had between horror and the adult film industry, in the sense that dedicated fan bases, a lot of crossover too. No, you know what I mean? We've never had fans not grateful. And again, they're very approachable, humble people. They like to, engage with their fans. They're not, they're not being inappropriate at the show. You know what I mean? I mean, buying an adult film is that's anyone's choice. But I mean, they're great people. They're great people. They like hanging out. They like engaging their fans, and they deserve to be championed and respected like any actors or actresses.
Well, it's interesting because I couldn't answer that question. You
Yeah,
did a beautiful job there, but I also couldn't picture shock stock without it. It's it,
it's uninhibited. It's an uninhibited environment. Like we don't want people to feel restrained. Like it's definitely the most welcoming environment that you could have as well. We have people that are not afraid to be themselves at Shockstock, and
exactly.
we would never stop someone from doing that. So I mean, truly, if you want to embrace inclusivity, and you want to embrace diversity, you have to own it. And that's what we do with our filmmaking. That's what we do with the films that we play. That's what we do with the guests that we book. That's what we do with with the fans that we welcome into the show. As we everyone, all walks of life, any type of person you want to be, even the person that you are. If you want to be someone else's Shopstock, you can do that.
And I also think about it, sex is a huge part of horror films.
Of course.
You know, there isn't one that doesn't have sex in it at some point.
Yeah, most horror fans' first experience of uh you know of understanding what sex is through horror films. I mean, if you got into horror films when you were a kid and you watched Friday the 13th, you learned pretty quick about the birds and bees, right? Like first few frames of that movie.
If, but if you learned sex through horror movies, you would probably never have it because you always die.
That's true. That is true.
But man, thank you for chatting on this. Everybody else stick around because I got a couple more questions about what Jake's been up to in the other areas of horror. But remember, Shockstock is the iconic place to go. And why is this not where it goes? There's the logo. If you want to check it out, please pay attention. Shockstock.com, and you'll have much more information there.
We'll be getting back to it in the next short while. We've got some more stuff. Yeah, more stuff to announce and to talk about as well. So I guess stick around.